Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Today may be just a little bit of a shorter episode, but it is still nonetheless an important one to talk about, and that is whether you should be killing your players or taking a moment to save them. Really, you can't do too much of one or the other, because, well, if you're constantly killing, slaughtering your players, and throwing TPKs at them, that's total party kills for those of you that may be new to tabletop gaming. They are going to just stop having fun and not really wanting to play. Unless that's the kind of game where you and your players are having fun. Certainly, if you're playing something in the Warhammer 40k where they're Imperial Guardsmen and they're going up against orcs or well, let's face it, if they're going up against anything in the Warhammer 40k universe, they'd probably better be prepared to just start losing guardsmen after guardsmen. That setting certainly allows for a lot of player deaths. But that's a specific example. As a general rule, for most tabletop settings, constantly killing and wiping out your players, gunning for them at every single turn and angle, no matter what they do, that gets really frustrating really goddamn fast. But on the other hand, if you are constantly saving them left and right, constantly keeping them from death and just coming up with these different narrative leaps or engaging in just outright Deus Ex Machina, they are going to stop being afraid. There's going to be no tension in the game. There's not going to be any fear of possible death. They're either going to start making really stupid decisions to try to start injecting a bit of liveliness into the game, or they're going to get bored and stop playing because there's got to be at least a sense of risk. Unless you're an absolutely incredible storyteller and you've worked in so many different ways or know how to work in so many different ways of reasonably and consistently saving your players anytime impending doom is coming down upon them, they are going to get bored. And even then, I'd still rather have that risk of death in there. You can come up with other ways of saving the characters after they've died. I mean, we're playing in fantasy games and in tabletop. There's plenty of different options for us to bring back characters. Depending on the setting. Again, Warhammer 40k, not so much. Not without the help of the Chaos Gods, and at that point, unless you're playing a party of Chaos Worshippers, the rest of the players are probably going to be turning on the person that came back pretty goddamn fast. Unless they're those regenerating, not inevitables. Ugh, I forget the term. Anyways, point being, a lot of settings, there's ways to bring souls back. In any of the Dungeons and Dragons editions, Pathfinder, Rollmaster, so many different fantasy games, you've got different ways, tips, and tricks to bring players back. And not only that, but retrieving a soul from the afterlife, that can be an adventure in and of itself. So there's a reason right there to not save the players. Take the interesting thing happening and let a player occasionally die, let a character occasionally die, or even the whole party, but then move the adventure on to somewhere outside in the plains, or even bring in a series of little one-shot characters for them to play, just so that they can fill in some different shoes and have different personalities, and have these little one-shot characters do something to bring back these heroes that end up passing on. Work that into your story somehow. And again, don't constantly be out to kill them either, because like I said, that's frustrating. If the players do something stupid and they piss off the Elder Worm, the Great Red Drake, or flip the bird to an evil deity and they get immediately smote right on the spot, well, that's on them at that point. That's they kind of tied your hands at a certain level, and really, it's nothing that you can do much about in that case. And the same goes for if the die rolls just turn on the players and are working really great for you and your little monsters. Well, there's not much to be done about that either. I had a oh, it was some sort of dragon spawn. It was one of the third edition green dragon spawn. Little leapy bastards with little bladed wings and the like came charging in, made a successful charge attack against the party's cleric. He had already taken some damage, rolled a critical hit, confirmed on another 20. He missed his third, but dealing that extra amount of damage on the critical hit and rolling nearly max on top of it killed him instantly. The party had to get the rogue to use their use magic device skill to get the staff of life going and bring the cleric back, because otherwise they were going to be screwed. But again, it's just an example of one of those little moments there where there wasn't much for that character death. That character was dead, and that's just how the dice played out. And I rarely play with a GM screen. On occasion I will, but the players got to see it was a fair die roll. They and the dice damage that rolled out, they got to see that as well. So there wasn't much for it, and everybody knew it. So, those instances, you're not going to get blamed for that. But if you are stacking up all sorts of enemy units, giving them different templates to boost them and making them a significantly higher level than players, and you're doing this constantly to wipe them out, again, they're going to get frustrated, bored, and not want to play with you anymore. And besides which, sometimes not killing the players, just working in occasionally these little narrative not even narrative leaps, but just reasonable explanations on how they get away, or even just quietly fudging your rolls just enough to where, yeah, they could have died, but oh, you managed to get away just by the skin of your teeth. Damn you. The players are going to be escaping and leaving with that palpable sense of dread that just eats at them, like, oh god, we almost died right there. And while there is a difference between what the player knows and what the character knows and how the character acts versus what the player knows would be the smart decision, hopefully by giving the players this sense that death could happen at any time, they'll work that into how the character is reacting and behaving and affecting the decisions that the character would make versus what the player would do. And that just makes for really good storytelling in that instance. And if you're going for that sort of setting where there's this palpable sense of dread that just eats away at their resolve and courage over time, as death is literally in some cases stalking the characters through this setting that you have, it will absolutely add to that amount of tension. In that instance, you probably do have to kill the occasional character here or there, but again, retrieving a dead character's soul or getting them brought back can absolutely add into that story and give you plenty of material to work with for throwing in these different adventures. I mean, take the Ravenloft adventures and setting, that gothic horror styled setting with Count Strahd von Zarovich, the evil vampire lord out in this far realm place where these dark powers just amuse themselves by drawing in all these different people, these horrific creatures, these tortured and damned souls that end up striking unknowingly these horrific bargains with these unknowable entities. It is very much a setting where it should feel like there's this impending sense of doom that just hangs over the players like some barbaric sword of Damocles, ready to drop down on them at any time. If you're constantly killing your players, they're not going to get that. And also, if you're constantly saving the players, they won't get that either. So you need to strike that balance in order to provide them with that sense. Hell, even if it's not that style of a setting, just working that in a little bit here and there will keep them feeling like that there's this sense of high stakes, if not for the larger world they're adventuring in, at least for themselves and these characters that they're playing. But those are just my thoughts and experiences on the subject. I'd love to know what you think, so please go and comment down below there. And if you liked today's video, maybe consider hitting the like button. Or, if you've been enjoying the content here, go ahead and click subscribe, and you'll be notified the next time I upload more content here to the Gamers Den. But for now, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. You guys have yourselves a good night.